Hello, welcome back to my channel. This is Becky, and I just wanted to also give more tips on how to protect your crown chakra, which mine has constantly been under attack from people who are trying to set me up for failure. They're trying to make me look disabled and have all kinds of weird illnesses, and because they keep poking me, internally through using my crown chakra. So anyway, I had shared on Instagram, someone had given a suggestion not only to start, I sleep with the cap, which I showed in another video with the selenite. I don't sleep with the selenite, but when I'm up, I put selenite on my third eye and it kind of comes to the crown. Well, they were saying that during the day, you should also wear hats to cover your crown. And so then I've been wearing this one and then I put the selenite. This is a different strip, a much wider one. And so then what I do is I put that one balanced on the top of my head and then I'll put, the hat on. So I have found that this is actually helping me to handle the spiritual attacks because, when you have parents that want to continue to abuse you and steal your money and everything, they have to make it look to fit the story. And so they can do that by attacking you from the inside, from your chakra systems, which is why I struggle here in the Bible Belt, because I have the religious people who don't want to believe that when I tell people that my family has spiritual gifts that go hidden, that they use for darkness behind the scenes. But boy, they look very religious in the 3D, because it's a duality game for them, because they can play in people's faces and then get away with it because they know how to do necromancy and all this other stuff that I don't want to have anything to do with. So I never learned any of that. I just stayed in my lane over in the religious zone, which I had been, boxed into. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to stay in this little box and try to get me, my kids, and my future generations away from, the past and moving forward. So when I find all of these little spiritual little tricks and tips, as I find, with the sage and the Palo Santo, and now I'm finding out about how to use the selenite, and I'm still battling myself with using the tarot cards because I still have that ingrained that that's evil and that's a sin, but I've got them and I am trying to get myself comfortable with using them again. But as I come up and find more and more tips, the other thing is to start blessing my water. So that was something that I'm going to start doing, is doing more blessing of the water before I drink it. That will also help, because we need to purify the water before we ingest it into the body. Okay, the other thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit was, did some research, and I'm not sure who I took this from, but it was talking about narcissistic parents. And it said, what are the warning signs that show up in the adult children of narcissistic parents? So mom and dad, or whomever the narcissistic, hypercritical, and judgmental parent figure, because it could be a grandparent, it could be, we have so many different types of blended families now. So whatever caregiver would fit that. And how you grow up and say, now I'm going to be different because I don't want to be like that. And I've always taught my kids, listen, I did the best I could because I didn't have good role models. Learn from my mistakes. Don't repeat those mistakes, right? You're going to end up making your own. So don't make mine. Like, learn from my mistakes as well. And I've taught them that as long as each generation is trying to get better, then that's what our goal is that progress rather than perfection, because perfection is actually trauma response from being around narcissistic, hypercritical, judgmental person to the point where you are terrified to speak your truth or go anywhere, and you have to then figure out how you're supposed to show up in that environment, right? So you don't get to fully embody who you are as an individual when you're raised and you're interacting with these type of parental figures. So I made a conscious effort that I was going to be different than the past. And I wanted my children to have a new future. So what am I to myself? Well, guess what? Because I was surrounded by the hypercritical and judgmental and the narcissistic people, then my inner voice became very hypercritical and judgmental of myself, because my inner voice mirrors my narcissistic parents. Okay, a child of a narcissistic family often will have unbounded guilt, shame, criticalness, hypercriticalness, so that they just take the voice from here and just live it inside of them. So, when that narcissistic parent is conditioning you your entire life, and suppressing your natural, authentic version of who you're meant to be, because they have a preconceived notion of who they're going to make that child become, well, that's going against God, okay? And the society that we've lived in have often just kind of turned a blind eye and just said, well, that's their family, hands off. And it's like, no, we have to actually do better for these starseeds that need to individuate at younger ages, because I should have been individuated as a child, and it has altered my divine blueprint. And I've spent most of my adult life trying to create my own path to having people that are sabotaging my divine blueprint. So what I want to do is I want to take what I've lived through and give, people that are maybe still experiencing that, some words of wisdom from someone who's lived through it and survived it. And then you can take that wisdom in one ear, out the air, or out the other, and just let it be air that goes through. Or you can actually retain that information and hopefully glean something out of it to help you in your situation to be able to break generational curses and to be able to still move your mission towards your divine blueprint, regardless of what your current situation is, right? So people screamed all the time. So I asked, how many times have you internally screamed at yourself? They don't realize that they can be pretty nasty to themselves. They don't even realize that they are just reliving this, only in a different way. So all I did was take the abuse that was external, and then I turned it internal, and now that abuse I'm doing to myself, right? Because I've taken what my parents, all the negative and the hostility and all those low vibrations that they would continue to project onto me. They would try to stick labels on me, and I'd be like, that's not mine. I don't know why you're saying that. And so then you internalize that voice, where then you start to pick yourself apart and criticize yourself until you become small and dim your own light. And just reliving that can bring back the emotions, which then when they have you sitting in a counselor's office and you're reliving those emotions, well, then that doctor or that therapist is going to make notes that are inappropriate, because that memory is holding on to those emotions and the body keeps the score. So then these so-called professionals are not giving accurate diagnoses, which is why I just can't stand all the labels that they want to put on everybody, because they're not accurate. They're just not. So when you are criticizing yourself, that way you're going to, under the hypnosis and the trance, that this is me doing it to me. The good news is it's not you doing it to you. It's your family still doing it to you through you. So there is a difference, which has really helped me be able to kind of pull things back into what is in my control, right? So right now, my parents had my money, and my extended family all has my money tied up in the courts because they're trying to say that I shouldn't be allowed to have my money, which is asinine. But I'm letting the courts do what they got to do. But I do know that even though that's not within my control, there's nothing I can do about that. I'm just going to let the powers that be in control of that. But there are things that I can do. Like I said, I can do these videos to help people that are still, trying to dig their way out of situations. I can teach you about the tricks of selenite and, keeping your crown covered. I can teach you on how to use stoicism to protect your heart, right? I can help you activate your throat chakra. There are different levels of service that I can offer. And then the 4 programs that I have so far are the 7 Steps to Getting on the Same Page blueprint. And I do have a workbook on Kindle KDP. I also work on the self-improvement of self-talk and reprogramming your subconscious to bring things to the forefront for you to address and hopefully clear, cleanse, and release. I could teach you about cord cutting rituals. I can teach you about energy protection and energy healing and medicine. There's a lot of different services that I can offer through that program. And then I also have the 90 days of for a complete family resolution mentorship program, and that allows me to go a little more deep diving into your specific situation, and we can then walk through whatever circumstances you're going through, and then I can offer you different things that can help. Because I also have is the How to Get on the Same Page with Yourself book, and that is over 5,000 affirmations to help you reconstruct your DNA on a cellular level through reprogramming your psyche and your subconscious, because that is what's running your 3D reality, is that subconscious programming. So you have to really be able to reprogram that before you're going to see the changes in the 3D reality. And so that book would be a great tool for when you don't have access to me or a support person. Then you would be able to read those affirmations to yourself to be able to, handle the situation without someone there to help you co-regulate. The 3rd book that I have on there right now is Getting on the Same Page with Your Divine Counterpart. Because just because you find your divine counterpart doesn't mean that life is going to be easy and it's perfect and everything's going to be great and it's going to be some storybook romance. There's still work involved whenever there's 2 separate human entity vessels that are coming together in union, especially if they have different beliefs, different, socioeconomic statuses, different cultures, different, everything is different. And all of a sudden God says, okay, that's your person. And you're like, but are you sure? Like, I don't know that person. And so that workbook will help you be able to really get on the same page with your partner, because there's too much superficial, shallow type energies that are just partnering up, and then they live a very shallow, superficial life. And if that's their experience, that's their experience. But God really wants us to be fully embodied in our divinity before we have a partner. And because who you choose is going to be way different when you're unhealed and your eyes still kind of closed and you really aren't fully aware of who you are. And that your choices you're going to make are going to be very different at that level versus once you've done the inner healing work and you've really put the time and the energy and the effort into following your path. Your choices are going to be very different. And sometimes the 3D world can kind of block off opportunities and prevent you from, finding that divine counterpart. So one of the things that I think her name is Louise Hayes. I think that was her name, Louise Hayes. One of her things that her quotes and affirmations that she would always say when life was really kicking her, she would say something to the effect of, and from this situation, only good will come. Something along those lines. So even if you're in a negative situation, that you have to remember to basically hypnotize yourself to remember that this is temporary and that And believe me, sometimes temporary can be a year, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years. So I hate, to give you false hope that means, oh, it's going to shorten it up to be just, a couple hours. No, you have to keep reminding yourself, because sometimes a chronic illness doesn't ever go away. Like the spine pain that I have, there's a lot of times where I've just learned how to meditate and tune it out, and that pain then becomes like background noise, and then I just keep tunnel vision on whatever it is I'm doing and navigating in the world, and then I tune out, those signals, which obviously I'm not saying to tune out your body's signals, but I always relate it to being a soldier in a war, right? And if you're in the middle of a war, and you might get nicked and grazed by a bullet, but is that going to make you stop on the battlefield and start crying? No. You're going to just work 10 times harder to get off that field, right? And so that's kind of how I bulldoze through a lot of tough situations. And I'm not saying that you have to do that, I'm just saying that that's a unique way that I have learned to survive in this world. And I've learned how to only show little snippets of myself to different people in different settings for protection. And so if you're interested, go ahead and reach out at homans.consulting@gmail.com, and we can go ahead and talk a little bit more about your situation and how I might be able to help. The other programs that I have besides those two are newer programs. Since I worked primarily with high school aged and young adults, the 15 to 30-year-old starseeds really seem to understand and understand the messages that I'm delivering. So I went ahead and created the Starseed Launch Program, which I help you build up the social skills, the psychological ability to handle the spiritual warfare. I help you with basically the building blocks, because my children were diagnosed with like autism and ADHD and bipolar, and I forget all the labels because they've always shifted the labels, and I'm just like, this doesn't make sense to me, but that is part of the matrix that's being dismantled right now because of the trauma that it causes on humans. Forgot where I was going with that. It'll come to me eventually, probably when I'm done hitting stop. With the launch program. So the Starseed Launch Program, I help you build the foundational skills that you need to develop your own self-confidence, to activate your own voice, to really determine what is your gift, because we want to pick one thing that you're like really good at and just really hone that gift, and then add on, once you master that, then add on the next thing, right? The fourth one is called what did I call it? It is, The Billionaire from Your Bedroom, which I know people are like, oh my God, that sounds so horrible. Well, only if you have a dirty mind, okay? Because right now, some of the most valuable information on just anything and everything is dying out as a civilization, right? If you look at the trades, there's not enough young adults that are wanting to go and become a plumber, and what's going to happen when the plumbing starts to break down if we don't have people that want to go be plumbers, right? So there's this disconnect right now, because those 15 to 30-year-old starseeds are pretty much boycotting the matrix and boycotting the 9-to-5s, and they're boycotting learning these skills as I'm gonna get back at the man kind of thing, and all that does is just hurt everybody. And so what I'm trying to do is create a bridge between spiritual people and religious people, instead of fighting against each other with this push-pull stuff. Like, we're all on the same planet, like we got to get along. So I fall in both camps. Yes, I am highly spiritually gifted, but I am also ascended and anointed. Both camps want to persecute me, and there's nothing I can do about that. So what I'm doing is creating this tribe of other beings like myself that don't fit into these two particular camps. Because it's like, what is the saying? Like, heaven doesn't want me, but hell's afraid I'm going to take over. And I laugh about it, but it really is true, because right now, the people that are, being overcome, they don't want to lose control. They like the way the old world worked. They liked the 3D Matrix dramas and all of that. So for people to actually want to experience peace and wanting to heal and wanting to bring in positive energy, well, then that goes against what they know. And most of them have been on the planet like 70 years, right? So they know how to be master manipulators better than the star seeds that are only 15. Now, the star seeds that are 15 are probably more spiritually powerful, but this holy war is really tearing everybody apart. And so the only thing I can think of is to try to get everybody on the same page and getting everyone to understand that just because you think something, it does not make it true. And that is hard for some people who are used to being seen as a Hierophant, godly person. If they've never met a true divine feminine, then they could never achieve becoming a true, fully Hierophant emperor. And there's too many fake empresses and fake anointed out there that can mirror and can act and can deceive. And so then it gives people like me a bad name because it's like, oh, she must be a Jezebel, she must be faking, and it's like, I'm not. And so then I just let, my actions speak. And I think the hardest part, though, is still being in a country where they want to tell you you're free when you're really not free. And then, like I said, the star seeds get angry at the gaslighting, So if you'd like to chat a little bit more, I look forward to you reaching out. I'm going to go ahead and let you go for this video, and I look forward to talking with you in the next. Have a great day.